Perfect. Back at it. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We had a good, hopefully a good roundtable today on strength and conditioning. Tried to bring in some guys and they're doing some different things in some different parts of the state, and lucky to have some pretty good experts, I think, on the panel today. So you guys want to go around and just kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll get going. So Darren, I'll start with you.
Darren Hartley, I'm the head football coach at Lewiston High School and head baseball coach as well, but Darren Hartley, Lewiston High School.
And you have somebody with you too, Darren, right? You want to introduce them as well?
Yes.
Yeah, Bob Morissette. I'm a strength and conditioning coach for the football team and baseball team.
Awesome, Coach. Matt, you want to go next?
Sure. Matt Perkins, Wyndham High School, girls lacrosse coach and football coach. So strength train both groups, so that brings in a little different taste of things we got to do during the year. So
you're coaching girls lacrosse now?
Have been for 7 years.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
You're like a young Skip Capone.
We played each other a few times.
I bet it was battle. I bet it was a physical game.
It was. He should have got kicked out every game.
Jeff, go ahead.
Jeff Wright, Oak Hill High School. I just took over for Stason. I work in the PE and health department and help out with baseball, work with all kids on their strength and conditioning.
And I used to see Jeff at the Y way back in the day, long time ago, when he used to come in with Mike Adams. Coach Lynch, go ahead.
How you doing, everybody? John Lynch. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at the University of Maine. I work primarily with football, but I oversee all the sports at UMaine.
Awesome. Zach?
Hey, guys. Zach Bonavie. I run Z-Bond Fitness, which is my personal training business, and I work with a lot of high school athletes individually, in a lot of sports, and I do work with some football guys.
Awesome. Coop?
Kevin Cooper, head football coach at Bonneville High School. And I guess if Perk's going to talk about coaching girls lacrosse, then I better add that I'm a assistant basketball coach at Bonneville too. So 22nd year at Bonneville.
Right. I remember when we both won it this year in States, and then Millington puts out the tweet, nice to see a couple of basketball guys doing all right in football. So, I guess we're holding our own. Right. All right, fellas, I'm going to go around and just fire some questions at you guys. Some of them will kind of go to the group, and some of them I kind of want to hit on some things individually with you guys. Just wanted to start with Matt and Coop and Darren and Jeff, because you guys are the high school head coaches on the panel. Just kind of get like an overview of your program. Maybe talk a little bit about how you transition from that November to February kind of postseason mode to that February to spring sport kind of period, and then we'll hold off on summer workouts. But then from February vacation to the end of school. So basically, you're training from the end of the season until the end of the school year. So, Darren, I'll start up there with you.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we implement at Lewiston High School it started out as the Bigger, Faster, Stronger program that we ran when I was with Coach Capone, 20 years ago. We have reached out to Coach Lynch at the University of Maine, myself and Bobby Morissette, my strength and conditioning coordinator. And we basically run a program that is an overall body lift program 2 days a week, wrapped around an Olympic lift on Wednesdays. We do 2 days of agilities, and we change up our program every single week, starting on or about the week after Thanksgiving. We really concentrate on flexibility, stretching. Our program is very time sensitive. Again, that's why we have the overall body lift on Monday, Friday, and then wrapped around an Olympic lift with 2 or 3 other exercises on Wednesday. 2 days of agilities. The agility sessions are about 20 to 25 minutes on Tuesday, Thursday. And again, we change it up every single week. Bobby reached out to Coach Lynch, and they work closely together. And we are trying to build strength and mass through the wintertime months. And then we try to get longer and stronger and fitter for endurance later on in the summer. But that's kind of an overall. Bobby, I'd like to have you if you want to input, especially on our RDLs and stretching.
Yeah, so we do kind of a warm-up routine we're kind of all of our warm-ups are trying to prevent injury. So I'm trying to bulletproof their hamstrings, their knees, their ankles, and add mobility. So we do a lot of banded RDLs, banded prone hamstring curls, pistols, squat jumps, plyo push-ups, just kind of warming them up, and a lot of with just hanging out at the bottom of your squat and rotating your hips and your ankles and things like that. We do a lot of shoulder mobility with banding and stuff like that before we work out. And we also do a lot of things where we plant on a single leg. We do a lot of single leg box jumps, weighted box jumps, ice skater jumps back and forth, 4 to 5 degree bounds, just really working on the guys to learn how to plant. And also their reactive state. We do a lot of seated box jumps or things like that to learn how to like rebound up when you like train your body, your neural system to once it hits the ground to be able to rebound into a different action, into a different place to help you with your cuts or tackling or stopping on a dime and switching and things like that. So during our warm-ups, we do a lot of that mostly to train your neural system to react correctly to live sport.
Awesome. Perk, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, we do a lot of similar things. Our schedule's probably a little different. We go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We developed a program about 6 years ago through Parisi and OA and kind of modified every year with OA. We go 3 times a week. We lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Tuesdays, Thursdays is more of our speed explosion period. We start in November. We get 8th graders come over. We kind of put them in their own area in the weight room where they're just technique. We're not putting on weight. We're not trying to do anything there, but encourage them to get in the weight room, get them comfortable around other guys, get them in a place where they don't feel like they're going to be picked on or anything else, and they understand the importance of being there. And then we go from there. As they get older, then we partner them up. This year, we've really had a lot of kids in there, so we've had the ability to go 3-4 kids together, and that's really helped with the team stuff and building there. So we've seen a lot of change in the last few years with kids pushing each other, and we've changed as far as things we do to encourage kids to get in there. We've been going break to break where we'll reevaluate what their numbers are, but we'll also do a program where we create this all-in club. We'll either give them T-shirts or shorts, depending on who's there the most. For first 2 breaks this year, we did 100% or nothing, and we jumped from 8 to 16 kids. Everybody wanted a T-shirt. So that really kind of helped develop and encourage kids to get in there with that program. And we've changed and modified a lot. We lean on OA guys to kind of look with the numbers. One thing that's been very helpful for us to chart for the kids is we use an app called Team Builder. Easy to get. It's $250. It's worth every penny. You as the coach can change this stuff every day, and there's a bunch of them out there, but that one's been really good for us. You can put out not just lifting programs, but you can also put out workout programs, speed programs, whatever you need, which we've used right now during this time, not seeing the kids. We're able to put stuff out there. So that's kind of where we're at with what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Perk. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, without taking a ton of time to reiterate kind of what Perk and Coach Hartley and Coach Morris have said, similar type of thing, depending on when our season ends, we get a little off period for the guys and pick up right around Thanksgiving, but a lot of it's mobility based, a lot of it's bounding, plyo based. So it's a mix of a lot of different things, but we have a small school. So most of our athletes that are going to be varsity athletes play more than one sport. There's a significant number of them that play 3 sports. So I get windows of time when they're not in a sport to do things. So depending on the kid, we really got to work on almost individual programs with each one, depending on whether they're playing basketball or whether they're in a baseball season or going through all 3. So their strength phases and things like that might look a little bit different per kid. I've got a good assistant coach that works with me who's great with strength and conditioning. So we can kind of individualize with each kid. We do work, Perk, you were talking about the younger kids. We do allow our 8th graders to come up. No wait, they spend even 9th graders spend a significant amount of time just working on movement patterns, trying to perfect those things. And then we only go to, I'm a stickler on range of motion, mobility stuff. So our numbers may not be as big as other kids if you look at certain rep maxes, but we'll look at moving the bar as far as bar speed and things like that, and technique a lot more than just numbers. So we have milestones as far as like our reward system goes that are based proportionately off a percentage of body weight type of movements, or some of those milestones may just be just a movement pattern in general that kids are trying to reach as far as goals go. Some of it has to do with flexibility, some of it has to do with technique, and some of it has to do with PR stuff. So it's tough to stick our kids all together at times because most of them are going to practices in the afternoons, especially during the winter. So, and our coaches, I coach baseball too, so we get limited amount of time with them.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Coop, how about you?
Okay, we're going to start our winter program sometime December-ish, although it depends a lot of times on how long your season goes. Last year our season went till the weekend before Thanksgiving, so it was really hard, I thought, to get our guys and come back the Monday after Thanksgiving. Whereas the year before we finished up in early November, and then by the 1st of December, you got kids that are really wanting to get in there and get going. So a lot as far as how our yearly schedule breaks down will depend on when we finish, kind of how what kind of is the situation with our guys. Do I feel like they need a break? Do I feel like they need to get going right away? I mean, that's going to depend year to year. What I like to try to do is shoot for our first phase, or our first kind of our first kind of sequence to end in that period after winter sports is completed and before spring sports are completed. So hopefully I can get guys that are multi-sport athletes for 3 weeks or so, 3, maybe 4 weeks in between winter and spring sports season, where if I haven't seen them a lot, I can kind of get them going a little bit. I can get a good idea on where they're at strength-wise. We typically like to do some sort of testing during that time. We won't always test those types of kids that are coming off a winter program and haven't done a lot. But it gives me if I can finish our first phase, our winter phase, in between our winter and spring sports season, that kind of works out pretty well for us. And then we'll have a spring sports season, our spring lifting season, that will end the week before. Typically, when we have our spring practice, which is we have spring practice the first week in the summertime that the NPA says spring sports season has ended, and then we'll have the summer phase that will take us into the season. So that's kind of how the year breaks down. As far as what we do, I would say we're probably very similar to what has been said already, especially what Darren said. We're going to focus a lot on mobility, range of motion work. So we're gonna get started about 2:15. Our school ends at 2 o'clock. We're gonna get started about 2:15, and we're gonna spend probably 45 minutes minimum, maybe a little bit longer, on just mobility type work, our plyometric type work, our speed work, and then get into the weight room. And we might only spend 45 minutes if guys work with a pretty good tempo, which a lot of our guys do. We might only spend 45 minutes in the weight room. So in an hour and 45-minute lift, we're doing 45 to 60 minutes more outside the weight room, and then 45 minutes to maybe 60 minutes inside the weight room. And again, I think that it's just anecdotally, because it's really hard for us, I think, as high school coaches to test this. But anecdotally, our injuries have decreased since we've been working mobility. We'll transition that right into what we do during the season. Saturday mornings when we bring our kids in, like I wouldn't need to even be there. Our guys know exactly kind of the mobility plan that we have, that they can follow. Our seniors can lead it if I have a faculty meeting. That's how entrenched it is on our kids' mind. And so again, I've got no studies on this, but I feel it's a huge part of what we do as far as reducing injuries during the season. So that's a little bit of a breakdown of what we do during the year.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Lynch, if we can get you back on here, I'd like to ask you and Zach to talk a little bit about the phase from, kind of the end of the school year, like mid-June, until mid-August. You've got those kind of 2 months there to really prepare for the season. How would you train, specific to football, and maybe you can even talk a little bit about the differences between, linemen and backs and receiver types. How are you training those kids to get ready? So, Coach Lynch, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, certainly. That's a topic that we could just talk for hours about, obviously. But to break it down into some of the things that I feel are really the most important is essentially a concept that that's, I guess, fairly new to me. I started looking at it about 2 years ago now, but it's acute to chronic workload ratio. And so it really highlights recovery. I would say in our program, we certainly look at the demands of football. We want to know, for each player, what are they doing? How long are they on the field? How long is a play for them? It's just a general needs analysis, like most of you guys probably do. But in more of a deeper look than that is really what the conditioning level of our athletes is overall, because conditioning inevitably is going to drive recovery. So obviously a better conditioned athlete is in the short term ready to go earlier between intermittent reps or between plays, or however you want to think of that. But also in the long term, from one day to the next, that same athlete will recover faster. In 1 week to the next, that same athlete will recover faster. And so when you start looking at the demands of the season, and particularly training camp, how do we get players ready for training camp? And I know we don't have 2-a-days anymore, and we can kind of make this thing, as conducive to health for the players as possible. The bottom line is the demands are still incredibly high. And if you don't have a player who can meet the demands day in, day out for 30 days, then they're going to be in the training room. They're not going to be available to you. Maybe they make it through camp, but those 4 weeks and then compile, playing a game on Saturday, and then, another 2 weeks of that. And you got guys who that third week or fourth week, are starting to get banged up. And then, really that's that fifth week of the season is really an indicator of how your progression was in the summer and through camp, because you might see those issues in camp with some kids, but the majority of them won't show up until a few weeks into the season. And so for us, obviously the strength component is extremely important. And the speed component is extremely important, but the recovery factor is really, to me, the number one most important piece, because if you're not recovering from a strength session, then the next day you're not as good. 2 days out, you might be back, but you might have a practice that day, or you might have practice the day before, so it really boils down to what can your players take on in a day, and what have they taken on the last 30 days, and then how do those things interact? And so to consolidate that, I would say, if you look at power or explosive force, it's really it's force velocity relationship. And so how much force can you put into the ground, and then how fast can you put that force into the ground? So obviously strength is a huge component, but speed is also an equally as important component. And so I would say that early in my career, when I was a GA and when I was playing, certainly I didn't realize that you could have a skewed balance there. A player who can produce a whole lot of force but isn't fast has a higher likelihood of injury. They probably don't move very well. They probably can't bend. You guys talked a lot about flexibility. I think you do, because you've seen players who are really strong, but then you ask them to go 1 inch lower and they can't do it, or maybe they get injured if they do it. You probably got a kid who can put 500 pounds on his back and squat a quarter or a third of the way down, but he's certainly not doing that, in a 90 degree or a full depth squat. And so, the problem there becomes that not just is the strength asymmetrical to the speed, but also the muscles themselves are asymmetrical to their opposition. Think of it in terms of like lower back and core, right? So you can have a kid who's got a really strong lower back and can load a bunch of weight on them, but it can't hold the front plank for 2.5, 3 minutes, so start to look at some of those issues, but that's really what we do. Everything's a balance. And so I would say that's probably the second most important factor, because if things start getting out of balance in any way, then your risk of injury is increased significantly. And I would think those are two of the most important things we really look at. I mean, obviously, we want to get kids stronger. We'll run them 2 days a week. We'll run them really on Monday and Thursday. The other 2 days in the summer are dedicated to really, we would call it tempo runs, but it's a captain's practice. And so they're doing what I want them to do on Tuesday and Friday by doing a captain's practice. They're getting their tactical work in. I mean, we've had success getting, 60 guys up here in the summer now that we have a summer bridge program over the last 3 years. And so, that enables us to not have to condition them on those other days and not have to try to figure out ways to do, to do things that are close to football. They do the football. I mean, we're not out there, but the coaches give them a plan and they do it. They do the individuals and they do OD. And so it's 2 days, it's 2 hours a week of high intensity running. The Monday day is a speed day and the Thursday day is an explosive day. They're both pretty similar. I mean, we run straight ahead. We do agility drills, but the majority of that output is max velocity, and it's linear, because that's one of the fastest things that the body can do. And so speed, really, if you start breaking down what speed is, it kind of boils down to, like some of you guys were talking about, the neurological aspect and being able to fire in one plane of motion and then reverse that action and fire in the equal and opposite plane of motion. Just think sprinting is you're going to kick and push, and then you're going to drive your knee back up. And so doing that, kicking on one side and driving the knee up on the other side is a pretty sophisticated neurological set of circumstance. And the faster you can do that, the faster you can do a whole lot of things. And so we try to make it simple in that regard, and we try to really make sure those guys are pushing themselves. And the other thing that we do that's really important is we're transparent. We don't add reps. We don't tell guys that, it's going to be a different workout than it is going to be. I mean, I put that workout in there the week in advance so the guys know what's going on and they can look at it. We educate them on why we're doing certain things and how it's going to help them. And then we try to make it fun. I mean, one of the drills that comes to mind that we did, we've done for the past couple of years actually, is it's an endurance. This is on the Thursday day. It's a repeated effort, but it's a pretty close to max velocity sprinting. And there's different distances for big skill and skill, but skill, I think we built them up to 60 yards, but it was 9, 10, 11, 11 with 30 or 40 seconds rest. I can't remember, but basically they'd start on the goal line. I'd whistle it, or I'd foot start it, or I'd have the quarterback cadence it, or I'd mix it up. But basically they run straight ahead. They got to make the goal. If the goal is 9 seconds, then they got to make. Now that's not the first day we build them that, but if the goal is 9 seconds for skill to get to the 60, 9 seconds for big skill to get to the 50, and 9 seconds for bigs to get to the 40. 9, they wait at 30, 40 seconds, based off the sport and where we're at in the season, but they wait there, and then we set them up, we bring them back, 10 seconds to get back, and then 11. And so that first rep is a pretty high intensity rep in the 9 seconds. And then that by the time you get to that 11-second, that fourth rep, guys are pretty burnt. And we make it fun. We give them timeouts, so we'll say, all right, we're going to do the 3 sets of 8, right? So we break it up into 2 halves. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, a minute off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 minutes off. And anybody can call a timeout at any time. And when you start putting younger guys in there and calling timeouts, I think I actually cited that example in this Sinclair's talk, but that was a really fun way to have some guys get buy-in and have some younger guys who are dying call a timeout and kind of get their face ripped off by the older guys who could handle it. So, some culture there too.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you. Zach, you know, are more into the personal training, so you're taking individual guys and trying to get them ready for the season. Kind of take us through what that might look like in the summer for a kid that you're trying to prep.
So in the summer months, usually, so their summer's June to August. So we go like 8 to 12 week phase. Each are 4 weeks long. So I only get 2 to 3 sessions a week, with my clients. I don't get them, like a strength coach does. You guys, I don't get them like 4 days a week. So I got to make the best out of each session that I get with them. So I'm just making sure, at those weeks, where we do we'll max out in the beginning of the summer, do a 4 week phase. I'll do another max out, and then we'll take a deload week, recover. And then going into the next 4 weeks will be a different phase, focusing on, progressing in that phase. And then I'll do another max out. And then usually we're getting into the season now, and I'm just making sure my guys are, conditioned and ready to go. Their knees, their shoulders are all finely tuned and set to go for the season.
Are there some differences in the way you might train a lineman over training a receiver or running back?
So lineman wise, I really focus, especially with like their squats and things like that, is, they're getting deep in their squats, because a lineman is, they're down in the 3-point stance. So, I'm really trying to focus them on generating power off the floor. And that I like to do a lot of front squats with linemen, just because it kind of focuses on having the load, in front, and they're powering it up forward in like an overhead press type of deal. Another great thing with linemen is double bounce back squats. So you're doing a back squat, and when you get to the bottom of the rep, you kind of double bounce. And what that bounce does is the momentum drives you a little deeper down, and it kind of helps with the lineman, the mobility in the knees, the hips, and then the ankles, and then driving it back up. And then focus a lot of box squats with my linemen, because, I make them come to a full pause on the box and then drive it up, just because, linemen are coming off from a dead stop on the line and have to explode forward. And then my backs, I focus a lot on, kind of speed, just, keeping them fast. You want to keep them, strong, but you also want to keep their speed, making sure they're mobile, and doing a lot of, the bread and butter lifts with all my football players, your squats, your bench, your deads, your cleans. I love dumbbell snatches, one arm, just, generating power from the floor and all the way up. I use a lot with my backs and my linemen. And then unilateral works, backs are always getting hit off balance, 1 foot, things like that. So your Bulgarian split squats, and your lunges, 3D lunges, skater lunges, your plyo work with my backs. And then my QBs, making sure, rotator cuffs especially are set to go. A lot of band work, external, internal rotation. The flex T position, so you're holding like plates or dumbbells or anything like that. Just because the quarterback, he's always here. You want his top half to be, strong with the ball. So making sure your rotator cuffs and your rear delts are nice and strong with like face pulls and things like that. And a good one to do with quarterbacks is flex T lunges with a rotation. So you're holding here, you do a lunge, and then you twist, keeping everything strong. Just because trying to do what a quarterback would do on the field with the football. And I also played quarterback, so it's always fun to work with them. And then, your tight ends and your fullbacks and linebackers, those guys who kind of have to do everything. I make sure I throw in a little bit of everything with them, because, they got to block, and they might be running routes, cutting, and things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Want to go to Perk and Coop on this one. In terms of your in-season lift, specifically with your older kids, with your varsity kids, what does that look like for the week? What do you have in your varsity group do, starting Saturday or whenever you start your practice week right up until game day? Perk, go ahead. You go first.
All right. So we lift with those guys Saturday and Monday. Saturday, of course, just like most of you guys would come in from a Friday night, guys are going to be sore. We spend a lot of time on movement, and stretching and rolling out. Really spend a lot of time with the rollouts before we even start, just to get the blood going. And they see the trainer comes in, really good for us. She's there at the right time. So she checks them out if there's any injuries and so on before we start to make sure everybody's good. Then we get into the lifting. That's going to be a full deal for us, but we're not going to go much in weight. That's not a heavy day for us at all. Our whole goal during season is really to maintain. We're not trying to bulk and those things. We have guys just like everybody that are playing multiple sports, and some kids didn't spend a lot of time in the off season. And this year will be different for us because we had a really good off season where we have guys that didn't spend a lot of time prepping. We don't want to load them in season. Then we're just asking for injuries. So we want to be very smart, really gauge who we have for each kid and what they've done. So that's how we look at it as a Saturday and a Monday.
Coop, how about you?
Yeah, we're gonna do our in-season lifts on Monday and Wednesday. I used to do a lift on Saturday. I didn't really like it. Kids are sore. They really weren't. Well, it really wasn't a worthwhile thing. So Saturdays we'll just we'll do our mobility work and then run a little bit. And roll if a kid feels like he needs to. That'll be Saturday. Monday we'll come back and there'll be the first thing that we do on Monday. So 2:15. The expectation is kids are meeting me in our lobby of our school. Again, we're going to do a quick warm up, quicker mobility because we're getting a little more mobility during the season when we flex during practice. So it'll be a quicker mobility. We'll be in the weight room. It might be 3 lifts. So we might do on a Monday. We might do some type of squatting, some type of pressing, and something for the back. And then we'll come back on Thursday and basically have again something similar. But Thursday will be our clean day. It'll be maybe our one-legged deadlift day. We won't deadlift during the season, except for one leg deadlifts with dumbbells. And then again, something for the back will be a Thursday lift. So again, we'll shoot for about maybe 8 sets of work, maybe 9 sets tops in our in-season work. And then we'll get them in, we'll get them out. Again, if kids lift with some tempo, which that's what we're stressing, it should be 30 minutes at most. And most of the time our older guys will get done in 25 minutes. So then we can progress on to meetings or our practice or whatever else we're doing that day.
Awesome. Darren, can you talk a little bit about how you handle the younger guys, your JV and freshman crew?
So for us, just returning back to the program last year, that was kind of an obstacle. In fact, I was just chatting with my strength and conditioning coordinator prior to the meeting. One of the things that's going to change for us is we had great intentions of doing a summer program with our middle school guys, and Bobby just set up a program literally last week and sent it out via email over the weekend for our guys. We've been working with the middle school guys trying to engage our young kids, but as far as our freshmen, we didn't address the freshmen, and it's mostly because of my veteran freshman staff last year. I was reluctant to step on toes. So our freshmen were really not engaged in our program during the season. However, postseason, they were engaged just like the rest of our varsity players were, and in groups of their age group with an upper class leader that helps them through the winter workout program. But as far as the freshmen going forward, they are going to be closely engaged with us. Freshman JV kids will be grouped together much more closely, and kind of like I'm going to impose my will sort of with that group this year.
Awesome. What day do you have would you have the JV guys lift, and what day would you have the freshmen lift, knowing that your JVs are going to play Monday and your freshmen are going to play Thursday?
Yeah, so in season for us, our varsity guys, we lift on Monday and Thursday, and something that I started this year for the first time historically in forever is our junior varsity guys who played on Monday, they lift on Tuesday and they lift on Friday. And that means guys that might play in a game on Friday night are still doing some maintenance lifts. But our freshmen next year would be in a very similar program. They're going to be lifting on Friday and Tuesday with the JV kids, and then our JV kids would be lifting on Tuesday and Friday, just like that. Freshman and JV, sort of a Friday, Tuesday thing, and then varsity Monday, Thursday. That's how and we did it last year with our JV kids. Very successful, I thought. They enjoyed the hell out of it.
Awesome. Jeff, you guys are a little bit smaller school over there at Oak Hill, so a little bit smaller roster. Can you just talk about how you manage the week in season, with your guys, and when the varsity guys might lift, when the JV guys might lift?
Yeah, so because it's varsity, obviously, is a little bit more predictable. The only thing that might change is our home field doesn't have lights, so we're a Saturday team. So the only thing that might change for us is a Friday night versus a Saturday game. So the week of a Saturday game, varsity kids, kind of similar to what everybody else has said. When we're done after a Saturday game, Monday, when we come in, we all check in. We go through our dynamics and our mobility to get warmed up, and then we'll go through a light session just to get some blood flow. We do probably more running and movement that particular day. And then on a Wednesday, we'll get maybe we're not going to load a lot, not like a typical maybe off-season session, obviously, but we'll load up a little bit on Wednesday to get our reps in. Our situation in our gym, the way that it's set up, we don't have a setup with a lot of power racks or anything. So we have kind of traditional benches and some old squat racks and stuff. So we kind of set up more of a circuit-based thing. And we try to get, at least a 1-to-1 ratio of everything, especially push to pull. We won't hammer legs necessarily. We'll go a little bit more aggressive with the upper body and core, maybe, depending on how kids are feeling. But we'll rotate through that. The younger kids, it really kind of depends. It flows with the season, because we'll get a week where we're promised a JV game, and then the JV game will get cut out from under our legs. Monday when we're at school, we'll find out that someone can't come in and play. We don't typically have a freshman team anymore. So, if we don't have a game on Monday for whatever reason, what we'll do is we'll rotate. Varsity kids will lift early, and the JV kids will maybe do a little bit of play review, things like that, and then we'll switch the kids. Because we can't fit everybody into our training room. And if they do have a game on Monday, they'll switch to a Tuesday lift, and then they'll get a later week lift, depending, if we don't have a Friday game before our pregame setup on Friday, the young kids can go in and get their second lift of the week. If we're away on the road, then sometimes it's a toss-up. If we can fit time, we'll get them in on a Thursday or something, but a lot of times we need those numbers just to run practice. So sometimes the young kids get cut short, but we do what we can. We have more control over the varsity and what they're doing. They'll definitely get 2 days at least a week.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Coach Lynch, wanted to ask you, in terms of like pre-practice stuff to get ready for practice. So like once the players get out to the field, what do you do with those guys to get them ready for practice? Some sort of dynamic warm up and stretch, combination, or just what does that look like for you guys to get ready for a typical practice?
Yeah, great question. And to be quite honest with you, this is something that we've really been looking at, trying to do a better job of. I don't think it's been bad, but basically what we do is we just do a simple dynamic warm up, and I don't make it very long. We use heart rate monitors with our program. We have 32 guys who we use Polar Team Pro with, and that system is pretty advanced. It's given us for one, it's given us total duration of the workout. Basically, they put it on when they get in the locker room and they're changing, and then they wear it out in the field and they bring it back in the locker room and we take it back off. So I can see their output from the time they put it on until when they take it off at the end of the practice. And to quickly answer your question, basically the warm up is one set of coach dictated tempo stretching. So we'll do a lateral lunge, we'll do a forward lunge with a reach, and we'll do a rotation. And so we do a couple different movements like that. And then after we do one of those, that'll be 2 or 3 reps each. And they rotate, or they switch on my whistle. One of the things that when I came in, I was using the warm up that Coach Cosgrove had for so many years, but I ran that one for a year and I hated it because I didn't have control over like the tempo that the guys are moving at or when they switch drills. And I just thought, when we get out there on game day, we want to have like a cavalry-like warm up where guys are structured, they're organized, they move together as a team. There's a cadence, we clap, we do certain things that, we want to look like we're prepared. And so I adjusted it to be on my whistle for, segments so that it seemed like it was more structured and it seemed like there was more discipline involved with it. But it's nothing that you guys haven't seen. It's super basic, like Frankenstein's and A-skips and things like that. But it takes about 8 minutes. And when I started looking at the heart rate data, I cut it way back. It was originally 12 minutes. We cut it down to 8, which was like 30% less time, because what we noticed was, the majority of our guys, at least guys who we cared about looking at their heart rates, they were guys who were going to play for us. They were already on the field. I mean, they were out on the practice field for 30 minutes. And so they were doing higher level, runs. Like our receivers were running routes and catching balls and they were doing real work. And so when we looked at the output from the warm up, it wasn't doing anything. The warm up took 12 minutes of time that there was no need for. Guys were already warm. I mean, yeah, you're 10% of your guys who, maybe walked out there 5 minutes before, hadn't moved around, but the majority of our guys had already been working. And so I really don't put a whole lot of emphasis on that warm up. There are some things that we'd recommended for guys. Ernest Edwards is one of the guys, you probably know who that is, but Ernest he was coming into our weight room actually before every practice and doing, RDLs and mini band lateral walks, some bear crawls and some different stuff just to switch on and really get some concentric activation in the hamstrings, in the obliques, in the groins, because that kid is obviously a Ferrari and he didn't have very good brakes, and that's a bad problem to have because next thing you know, you don't have a hamstring. And so we were doing that. We had done that with guys. We've done that for a few years with guys, not every guy, but guys who, are invested in their bodies and guys who, we feel like have the time to come do it. And so we recommend that to guys so we know will do it. But I do think that it really helps. And to Coach's point about the pregame lifts, I think that's a great idea specifically for younger guys, get them in the culture of that. But also like our women's basketball team was doing that this year. And the head coach for that team was pretty nervous until they started draining threes like every shot. So I definitely don't think there's a problem with doing that pre-game, like day of the game workout.
Awesome, Coach. Zach, he talked a little bit there about like just some injury prevention stuff, and I'm sure you're kind of dealing with that with what you work with. That's probably what some athletes are looking to get out of it. So particularly with football players, what are you telling those guys, or what are you doing with those guys to help protect hamstrings, backs, and shoulders?
Just making sure, they're, especially with the hamstrings, a lot of kids who, don't have the guidance when they lift, they don't think about posterior chain work, the glutes, the hamstrings, and the low back, making sure that's strong, because if it's not, you're going to have a lot of issues. So just making sure, we're keeping the hamstrings and the glutes strong. And then my quarterbacks and those guys with the shoulders, just like I said, doing the band work for warm-ups, and the face pulls, and making sure as well, posterior chain, your rear delts and upper back is nice and strong, just to make sure that's set to go for the season.
Awesome. Coop and Perk, going to go back to you guys. Can you just talk a little bit about what you guys do pre-practice, and then kind of specifically mention if there's any difference between that and what you do on game day? Perk, go ahead. You go first.
Okay. very similar for us. We probably spend a little bit more time on game day, just really making sure that we're really with our groups, just like everybody when you come out to the field and so on. But we're going to have those guys separate with their coach, really making sure that they're getting limber and ready to go at their spot. Obviously, practice time, we're all together, trying to get things going, structured, making sure we're hitting on what we need. But also, if we get a sense that we have guys that are stiff, or guys look like they're tender and sore, or we've heard complaints, and guys are wrapping up with a trainer more in certain areas, then we'll focus on them. There's a lot of connection with us, with our trainer, on when kids weigh in after each practice, where they are and what they're hurting. So really make sure that we're hitting on those areas if there is some alert for whatever that's coming up. We've had some issues in the past with being on certain fields and guys complaining about lower leg issues, and really having to focus on that. So that's been a huge asset to us with using the trainer for those things. But we will really amp it up game nights and make sure that we're ready before we even step on the field.
Coop, how about you?
As far as pre-prac, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we will always have about a 15-minute pre-practice session where guys are working in their position groups. The coaches will do some position-specific movement stuff. So, like on Wednesday, our defensive day, our defensive backs will start to do some back pedal. They'll start to do some forward running. They'll do some ball drills. It'll get them kind of moving and kind of shifting their hips and whatnot. So our linebacker coach will do some position specific drop work, and our D-line coach will start doing a little bit of stance and start work and things like that. So I would agree with what Coach Lynch was saying, that we probably take about 8 minutes with our on-field mobility warm-up flex session, because again, with a pre-practice session, our guys are pretty much ready to go. And so it's almost like we just want that little brief motor break, hit any muscles that aren't ready to go before we start the real practice. But for the most part, pre-practice will get them going. As far as on Friday nights, we're gonna do a mobility warm-up session, and then get them on the field. And again, I don't think guys really need that much on a game night, and I just kind of equate it to basketball. So we'll warm up during basketball season in a similar way as what we do in football, where guys will be in the gym, they'll start moving around, we'll get their core temps up, and then do a mobility flex session for about 8 minutes. But on game night in basketball, what do? Like, our guys dribble, and that's pretty much it, because you don't have space. You're at an away game. You're at Wyndham for a basketball game. You got the locker room and a little bit of hallway. And so there's really no warm up in a basketball game except for 14 minutes layup lines. So, it's like, I don't know if guys really need to spend a long time getting ready to go. My feeling is, as far as what we do on field pregame, is it'll be after specialists get done, it'll be maybe 20 minutes, and that's it. And by that time, I think guys got to have their body temps up, and they're ready to go for a game.
Awesome. Jeff and Darren, wanted to talk to you guys a little bit on the motivational piece. So, like, Darren, I know for you, a big emphasis in your off season this year has really been getting kids in there, and getting some excitement going around the weight room again. And so what are you doing to incentivize that, or just to motivate kids? And Jeff, I know in our conversations you've talked a lot about just getting more of a sense of urgency back in the weight room there, like you had a few years ago. What are you guys doing for that? How are you getting through to kids as a group? How are you getting through to them individually? And maybe what are you doing, just to some neat little ideas on the side to try to help? So, Darren, you want to take that one first?
Sure. So again, I alluded to this earlier. One of the pieces for me, as far as my strength and conditioning program, has always been a piece of time sensitivity. We have the weight room right after school before other teams' indoor track comes in. So our weight room time, honest to goodness, is from about 2:10, 2:15 to about 3:05, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we do our speed and agility Tuesdays and Thursdays from about 2:15 to 2:40-ish. We also do a heavy core work, all of our abdominal stuff on Tuesday and Thursday as well. So what we did is we instituted, the old T-shirt clubs, the 300-pound club, the 250-pound club for squats, for three Olympic lifts. The kids love it. Our numbers are absolutely fantastic. We average anywhere from 22, 26 to 31, 32 kids all winter long. Our issue for our program is the kids are involved. The kids love the T-shirts. We're trying to get our kids invested in nutrition because it's the most incredibly insane thing we've seen, which is hurting us, is our kids' nutrition and their attention to detail with their nutrition is absolutely an abomination. So our booster club has supported us through some food and some good quality snacks that we have accessible year-round for our guys. And then we try to do a monthly assessment broken down by position group, bench press, squat, trying to get assessments and post them. So that's what we've started to do. Again, the kids have really been enthusiastic. Another piece, and I really want to make sure Bobby understands this. Bobby's a general manager for Hancock Lumber, and he's very, very busy. But the kids really look forward to Bobby coming in. He's a wealth of knowledge. His positive enthusiasm and his attention to detail is incredible. And the kids, when they know that Coach Morissette's going to be there, they incredibly look forward to that. Maybe they just get sick of hearing my voice, but they really get after it when Bobby gets there, and it's been very positive for us. Our issue is nutrition and hydration. It's really incredible in Lewiston. That's where we're at.
Aaron, I don't think anybody ever gets sick of hearing your voice, man. Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about your program?
Yeah, sure. The big thing for us, and I've always kind of been a gym rat just personally, and I know that it's different, different strokes for different folks. Stacy and I used to go back and forth about the extrinsic motivation to get kids in there. 6-7 years ago, I had a group of kids that were real tight, and they would give each other hell all day long if another one didn't show up to do their lift, or if they hit a new milestone or could do a new movement pattern or had mastered something, they would be all over each other. And that just kind of that fueled itself. We didn't have to do much work there. And since then, since their success, I think kids kind of naturally thought that things were just going to happen for them. But we've got a young group motivated again now. It's a different group, though. It's not big, strong kids. It's more of our skills positions kids. But we took, I mentioned it earlier, we call them milestones. But I messed around with some numbers over about a 12 to 15 year period with our kids. And we have a number system based off of an old power index calculation. So we kind of worked it for high school students. And there's a pattern, but basically we can say, if you reach this particular power index, we've never had a kid that's not an all-conference player or maybe a player of the year nominee. And in order to get to that point, we have about 20 different milestones. And again, they range from just learning movement patterns to maybe it's a specific flexibility or movement test that they have to actually pass. Maybe it's a conditioning type of thing that they have to pass, whether it's cardiovascular or strength-based. Maybe it's just one of our team tests, one of the fun things that we like to do. But every time they reach one of those milestones, helmet stickers for our kids are, they're like gold for whatever reason. So before a season gets going, we can keep track of things for them. And that kind of in itself has motivated this young group. We got about 20 kids right now that are coming in, and they're trying to attack each level of that little pyramid. whether it be, functional, hip, lower back, knee mobility stuff. We got a lot of kids that come in as ninth graders that, never mind attack or front squat, they can't even get into a squat pose without externally rotating or losing balance or heels coming off the ground, or, there's 1,000 different things. So they'll spend hours trying to master that just to get that carrot. So it's similar to a t-shirt type of thing, but rather than have a 300-pound club or 1,000-pound club or whatever, we just tackle it in little bits and pieces. So, if a kid masters a one-legged deadlift, or a kid masters even just, a dumbbell deadlift, if it's a really young kid coming in, then, we throw them a bone every time they're making a step forward. So, we've got kids who, can crush big numbers. They're big, strong kids, but everything's proportionate to body weight. So if I get a kid that walks in that's 98 pounds soaking wet, everything that kid is doing is proportionate to their body size. So I've had kids that weigh 150 pounds that proportionally are the most mobile, and also some of the strongest kids on the team, even though they're not going to put up big numbers. So that, I think, in itself has been a big motivator, because all of our kids see value in what they're doing, even if they can't push big numbers, even if they can't run the fastest, or they're not the most flexible. They've all got something to work for.
Awesome, Coach. Like it. Coach Lynch, Coach Hartley mentioned nutrition. What would be some recommendations that you could make to players, or for coaches to relay to their players about nutrition and hydration, during the season?
Yeah, and I would agree with Coach Hartley. It's certainly one of the biggest challenges we have as well. We don't have a nutritionist on our staff. It's really just me. And so one of the things I actually made a point to do this spring, and I dabbled, and we had done some semi-regular nutrition presentations in the past. But this spring, I really decided I was going to touch on all the aspects of recovery that I feel are important. And so nutrition is certainly one of those aspects. And if you're loading your body and you're moving your muscles and you're utilizing substrate to do that, then you better be replacing it. But kind of like I alluded to earlier, recovery is certainly the most important factor in performance, and there's more than just nutrition that has to do with that. And so we had 4 days a week where we trained, and we talked about sleep. We talked about obviously nutrition. We talked about hydration, but we also talked about mental health. And that there's a little bit of a stigma behind even that term, but I kind of just gave my take on those things 1 day a week. And mental health was things like, are you happy? If you smile, even if you're not happy, you get a little bit happier. And so I would just kind of find a fact that I thought was good that day and throw it at them. But in terms of nutrition, obviously hydration kind of falls in there, but I felt that things they could connect to were really good. And so we would talk about chocolate milk, obviously. So we gave chocolate milk out for a while, and we stopped doing it because it wasn't worth the money we were spending on it. And we messed with some ways that they could get food with our dining hall, which obviously you guys don't necessarily have the resources to utilize, but we got them some food in the morning, and we structured practice around the times where it was going to be available to them. But, the educational component of nutrition, and really it was just coming from me, I thought was fairly important, and more often than just once every 2 months when we do an hour-long meeting about it. I felt like just the way you would coach anything in the weight room, you never sit down and have a seminar about it, because guys, like, they tune out after a couple minutes. But we'd hit them with minute and a half of advice each week, and we would kind of build on it. So like whatever the nutrition point was for week one, it would kind of build the next week. So for an example would be, hey, if you have a chocolate milk, or at least some type of like a 1-to-3 to 1-to-4 carb to protein ratio snack or beverage within 20 minutes of your workout, that's really positive, and it's going to help you a lot. And then the next week would be like, all right, well, why is milk or chocolate milk maybe better than so, and another type of drink. It's like, well, it has calcium in it as well. It has protein, but also has calcium. Did you know that every time you use a muscle, it burns calcium as well? And so like things like that are like physiological concepts that guys just have no idea about, because the real challenge is breaking a habit. We have guys out of, the inner city in New Jersey and PA and DC, and these guys don't know anything but chicken wings and French fries. I mean, we have recruits, and we take them to Seasons for dinner, and they give us, a bunch of salad and a bunch of chicken wings. Nobody eats any salad, and chicken wings go first 3 people. And so that's just the thermometer that you got to go by. And I think in terms of motivation that you guys were just talking about, it's like, if we can educate people on why they need to do certain things, then that's a pretty powerful, ability. And really, we want to try to educate people so that they're intrinsically motivated to do things. Because if I got to hold a guy's hand, at a team meal, or, well, maybe not a team meal, so we give them food, but if you got to hold their hand on Friday night, then you're not getting anywhere.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. I like that. It's the like 90 seconds on each one of those every week is a good, that's kind of a cool way to think of it. Zach, I'm going to slide over to you for a question. Then we'll get one more to the group, and then we'll kind of open it up for guys if they want to get on and ask some questions. But Zach, in terms of like speed training for guys, obviously 40 time is a thing that kids have a lot of pride in, or certainly if you're trying to get recruited, that's probably something you're trying to improve. What are you doing to work with guys to improve their speed? And what do you think are the most important things that they have to do?
So my favorite thing to do with my guys is if you can honestly order one of these right online. It's a bungee that hooks across your athlete's waist, and it spins around their body too. So whenever we're doing sprints or agility work, I have that bungee, and it's giving them that extra resistance. It's cool because you can do like different agility drills, like cuts and things like that, and the resistance kind of goes with them. And so I've been utilizing that a lot with my athletes, speed wise, and then just running the 40. Each week, having my guy run the 40, timing it, and then making sure we're trying to beat that time each week. But one thing that I've noticed a massive difference with my clients, especially some of you might know Brandon Fry. I've trained him a lot, but using the bungee and just running with resistance has done wonders, as well as working on explosive training in the gym. Things like explosive squats, your jump squats, your jump lunges, your plyos, working those fast twitch muscle fibers in the legs has really helped improve a lot of my clients' speed.
Awesome. Last one I want to ask before we get guys on here. In terms of cleans, how much are you guys having your guys do cleans? More hang cleans, power cleans. If you want to talk about teaching progression, like what do you do with the young guys first? What do you do with the older guys? And without going into a ton of detail, I just want to kind of go around the horn and see you guys' thoughts on that. So, Coop, I'll start there with you.
Okay, so we're gonna clean on Wednesdays. We typically lift Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, which seems a little weird, but we don't have activity buses on Friday, so I really can't lift on Fridays. But anyways, Wednesday will be our clean day. It's our explosive lift day. We'll deadlift on that day too. We'll do some snatches, whether they be barbell snatch or dumbbell snatch. And so that's our clean day. We're gonna power clean. We're gonna go from the floor. The reason being is that I think when it can be mastered, it's really more of a full body thing, and the technique that you're going to need to do is going to pay off in terms of what you have to do on the field. It's not an easy teach for any means, as I'm sure all you guys know. I mean, it's going to take a while. We're going to try to hit on a couple of pieces on the teaching part in our mobility session as best we can. I've got some PVC pipe that essentially are, it's like a It's maybe about 5 feet long. This PVC pipe, and so we can teach on that a little bit. We have a lighter bar, so we can teach on that a little bit. I've got some basically training plates that are just simple plywood, but they're in the size of a 45-pound plate, or at least the diameter of a 45-pound plate. So we can use that for teaching. But honestly, I think most of the time you need to get guys right in there and start doing it. Like you got to get them with a bar in their hands. You got to get them going. If they can't do a clean with a 45-pound plates on the end, we'll probably more hang clean them with those guys, because we don't want to go down any further than what the 45s would take you down. But I think that it's best to get guys in there and get them going. It's a hard one, I think, for most high school kids to just say, do it like this. Here's your coaching point, 1, 2, 3, go do it. And then they're going to replicate it. They're not going to. You got to get them going. You got to coach one little piece at a time. I'll video them. I'll show them the video. I've got a couple of examples of guys that we've had that have been really good. So we try to progress them along. But I think, as long as they're being safe, then you kind of got to let them go a little bit, and then coach them hard. And our older guys are really good in helping out when they see issues. But as long as they're being safe and they're not doing something that's going to injure them, get them with a bar in their hands and get them going. That's kind of how we got to approach it.
Jeff, you said you had that young group of skill guys. Are you doing cleans with those guys? And if so, how are they kind of attacking that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Coach Coop. I don't think there's anything else that translates to being on the field, making a tackle as much as a clean does. My younger guys work, I was talking about those stepping stones. So my guys got to be able to, deadlift properly. They've got to be able to dumbbell snatch properly. And we'll do single arm and we'll do double dumbbell snatches or cleans from the floor. But, you're looking at teaching a kid how to pull, how to high pull, how to shrug, and actually clean something. There's 4 or 5 movements there. So as freshmen, they're just developing that foundation. I've probably got a few kids that are accelerated, and I'll pull them aside and start putting the pieces together. So as they get through those steps and they build those progressions, and then we start to put them together. So we have some training plates and lighter bars and things like that we'll use to get through the progression. But I don't typically, I won't jump into power cleans from the floor until I'm confident that a kid can do those 4 or 5 other moves first. And some kids, that takes a year and a half to really develop the coordination and strength to do it. Some kids, I can get them in before the end of their first football season. They're in the gym practice and some of that stuff. So, it depends. Your more athletic kids will pick it up fairly quick.
All right, I'm gonna let some other guys get in and ask some questions, because I think that you guys answered it pretty well, and I think we'll get there. But Perk, I'm gonna ask you real quick, 1 rep max right now. If you had to bench today, what could you get?
Oh God, I just did the tree in the backyard. I don't know what it was. That was my max though.
Mark, what about you? You're a young guy. What's your 1 rep max today as it stands? What could you get?
You say me?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't 1 rep max since I was like 18, but it was only 260. I'm not a strong guy.
Coach Lynch, who's got the best bench press on the UMaine football team right now?
Oh, geez, right now, I'm trying to think. Probably Max Roberts, who's a Fordham transfer. He also got the best clean too. Kid cleans almost 400 pounds. So Grant Hartley's getting close though.
there we go. That was going to be my question for Darren. Who can lift more at this age, Grant or Darren when he was Grant's age?
My son can bench more than me now, I can tell you that much.
What about when you were his age?
No, I could take him at his age. But I was a lineman. He's a quarterback.
Awesome. All right, fellas, we'll let some guys get on here. And I know Coach Wright can outbench everybody. I've seen him work before, man. You and Mike Adams would put me to shame at the Y back in those days. I could not hang with you guys. It was too much. So we'll let these guys get on and get some questions for you guys. So Coach Goff, go ahead. You're up first, bud.
Yes, sir. You coaches that said you start your off-season workout program in the latter part of November into the early part of December. First question is the expectation that your football players playing a winter sport participate in that program, or is it just for your football players that are not participating in a winter sport?
Perk, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I'm pretty lucky that I teach 2 to 3 classes during the day in the weight room. So those guys can maneuver. Usually if they're playing, that's kind of expectation. If they're playing, we're going to try to match up their study halls and so on. If not, like this year I had some kids that are basketball players that we just said, hey, listen, let's figure out times that you can get in 2 to 3 times a week, whatever that looks like, even if it's 20 minutes, and we'll maneuver and create a new schedule so they can maintain what they've created as opposed just to lose it all during basketball. So we had a couple kids that we had to do that with. They were all bought in, and they would text me every Sunday, hey, what about this day, this time? And we just made it work. But they've kind of created a path where it's an expectation between them. I think Coach Wright talked about that. There's a group of them that demands each other be there. And so that's really kind of helped me and my coaches where they're policing each other because they're kind of all bought in. So that's Hartley was talking about it with his kids out there starting to get in there. And Coop said how it's an expectation with certain things. We're now back to that. We had a bad 2-3 years, and now it's kind of coming back up. But it's very important that you have guys that are good leaders that help drive that.
And then Coop, you have some good experience with that because you are an assistant coach on the hoop team now. And, I know I have to deal with a lot as well being head coach of both. But you guys you've done a lot of lifting with the basketball team, and a lot of those guys are basketball and football players. Can you talk a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I would just say in answering the first question, the words coming from me is it is expected that you train. I will adjust your training program if you're in a sport in order to help you with the demands of that sport. Unfortunately, none of us, and if we're following NPA guidelines, can we actually demand that kids be there. It's really got to come from the kid. It's got to come from the teammates. My issue with kids that play other sports, and my issue really isn't with the kid, it's with the coaches. There aren't a lot of coaches that will ask their players to lift and train during the season. And so at Bonnie Eagle, basketball coaches, my entire time until 2 years ago, basketball coaches didn't ask their kids to train. They would give them a program for the summertime, but that would be the only time. So come season, nope, they weren't lifting. Well, now you're losing football, basketball kids right there. So like hockey, for instance, at Bonnie Eagle, coaches make no effort to help kids train, give them time. I mean, if you've got a kid during the season, you've got to give him time. You got to give him time if you want him to train. You can't just expect the kid to be at practice at 2:15 and then finish at 5 o'clock, and because at 5 o'clock they're going to go home. So my issue is more with the coaches. I thought when I came to Bonnie Eagle that but in a decade, all coaches would be doing the same thing that we were doing as football coaches. Well, it's now been 2 decades, and it's pretty rare. I've been fortunate where since I've been involved with basketball, I work very closely with a basketball coach. He's my freshman coach. So that allows us to train the basketball kids. So I'll train the basketball kids. And if I need to miss, say, a basketball meeting or a little bit of practice because I'm training football kids, it's an understanding that that's okay. I view my job first and foremost with the basketball team. My expertise is not necessarily how to break a zone press. My expertise is how to get kids more athletic and better so they can compete better on the court. So I'm going to train the basketball kids. And so we've made that work for the last couple of years. 2 years ago, it worked great. I tested the kids in the vertical jump first week of basketball practice during tryouts. I tested the varsity kids the last week as we're heading in. We're in the tournament. We're getting, we're preparing for a regional final. Tested the kids on the vertical jump again. Our average gain was 1 inch per player in the course of a basketball season. I thought that was pretty darn good. So fortunate that my relationship with the basketball coach and him and I working together in both sports have allowed us to really impact our athletes way more than in the past. I'm very lucky that our track coaches now have kind of bought in. So our football players that run track, they get their workout in a couple of times a week. So right there, that really helps us hit athletes for the full year and still allow them to play multiple sports.
Awesome. Do you have one more question, Coach?
Yeah, the second part of that is how do you men schedule and navigate the workout program through Christmas break, which is literally just a few weeks after you start?
Darren, you want to take that one?
Yeah, shoot. For me, we've always been open at all of our breaks. We keep the weight room open, but we keep it open 3 days a week. We essentially omit the agility sessions of our strength and conditioning. And obviously, we just try to encourage the guys to come. We coach it up and see if we can get our senior leaders. And the numbers were okay this year. They weren't great, but we averaged about 12 or 13 guys those 3 days and over the break, where I think it was 6 days actually over the 2 weeks. But we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's the expectation because I'm there and the weight room's open and our assistant coaches are there. So that's our expectation.
What time are you there, Coach?
Nope, go ahead.
What time are you there during those 3 days?
I believe we did it at 10 a.m. And I think that was a consensus. We asked our kids. We tried to stay away from work schedules the best we could. And I'm pretty sure we went from 10 to 11:30 this year in those break sessions between February and the Christmas break.
Coach
Thank
Wright,
you.
how about you?
Yeah, fortunately, I have a key and a code to the building, so I don't really have to ask permission, as far as access goes. So we do stay open all vacations, Monday through Friday. Part of that's selfish because I'm going to go in anyway, but we do. The timing is interesting because Darren said, 10 a.m. We've tried all kinds of different times. No, nothing has worked better or worse. Late afternoon. We go in early in the morning. I'm there at 5:30. Most kids, if they're going to come in, will roll in around 6. And we'll go 6 to 7:30. If there's some stragglers, we'll go to 8 or whatnot. And then we've done, I had a kid quite a while ago asking me about Christmas morning. Didn't have any younger siblings. And I said, I will be here. My daughter was younger. She's going to sleep in. I got nothing. So now we'll do a Merry Liftmas if we have enough kids that commit. We'll go in early and they'll get home before anybody wakes up.
Awesome. Coach Philly, you got a question?
Hold on. No.
There you go.
No, actually, all the questions, those are great questions, and they were all answered. I just, my biggest question was, and I've talked to Coop about this too, and it's more of a comment than a question. So after Bonnie Eagle knocked off SP last year in the tournament, I used that with my basketball coach Millie, and to say, hey, lifting during the season. And I think that is the toughest thing, right? Is to get guys to lift during the season. And so I'm fortunate enough our boosters pay for a strength and conditioning coach because I don't know what the hell I'm doing because I can't bench more than 135 pounds. So it's great. And he's good and he takes care of all that. And he works with the basketball team and the baseball team. He was scheduled to work with the lacrosse team too. So, but I just think in season is the toughest sell. I agree with Coop. I mean, it's the toughest sell going,
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm the basketball coach, and it's hard for me to get my own kids in there when they play both. It's not, and I think a lot of it is, in particular this year, it was not a great year for us in the weight room in the winter, and I think a big part of it was because, one season ended and we had already started the other one, and kids didn't really get a break and they didn't get a chance to recover. And, the thought of going in and lifting after practice was not something they were super interested in. And it was, it was you're in just kind of a tough position at that point in terms of, what do you want to make these kids do and how can you extract the most out of them, knowing that some of them are pretty beat up. So that's been a little tough. But I will say, and I'll let Skip chime in after this, that, I think Mike Adams has certainly shown at Edward Little that you can lift with your basketball team plenty and be just fine. Skip, go ahead, man.
Hey guys, just a couple of things that might help. Whether you're if Darren kind of mentioned, Perk mentioned it. I know he's a phys ed guy. I'm not sure if how many head coaches or assistants are phys ed guys. One of the things I did, and this was way back when I was at Lewis and probably halfway through my tenure, I was able to get a weight training elective put into the phys ed program. So it was a couple of periods a day that gave my guys some flexibility if they were in-season kid, if they were, kid maybe wanted to have a job, whatever, another opportunity. And it kind of took away the excuses. And the other thing, and Jeff Wright, I love you to death. I'm an early morning guy myself, and Darren knows back in the day, I probably have 15 kids who come in with me and work out at 6 o'clock in the morning. And again, those kids, kids that needed to work, multi-sports athlete. I can remember a number of basketball players coming in, stuff like that. And Coop, just so you know, it was no different, as 30 some years ago, with the basketball coaches not wanting to do shit in the wintertime. And they give their kids a workout in the summer, and they wonder why their kids are soft as puppy, in the wintertime because they don't do anything. Well, there's a couple of thoughts, guys, that I know work for me. Again, just other opportunity. And again, it's great to sell to your principal because it's another elective, another way to give kids options. And that was the way I sold it. And back in the day, I guess I baffled my principal with BS as I can do pretty well and was able to get that through, and it worked out well for us. That's what I got.
Awesome. Anybody else out there got a question they want to throw to the group before we shut this thing down?
Yeah, just one more quick one.
Yeah, go ahead.
About pre-practice times, weightlifting times, practice times. Once you're in school, I know Mondays are what they are with JV games and things of that nature, but Tuesday through Thursday, what time are you guys hitting the field? What time are you leaving the field? What's wedged in between that with lifting times, things of that nature?
Anybody want to take that one? I can give you real quick, Brian. What we do is after school every day. There's a group in the weight room and there's a group in the classroom, and those kind of change throughout the week. And maybe some days that some kids have neither, and they're just kind of in the locker room getting ready, or maybe they're seeing the trainer, or maybe it's the freshmen and they're getting stuff ready for practice or whatever. But by the time we hit the field every day, it's about 3:15, I would say, maybe between 3:15 and 3:30. We go a little bit later on Wednesdays because me and another coach have staff meetings. So I don't know what it's like.
How does your day end?
Our day ends at 2:02. So
2:02?
2:02. Yeah. So at 2:02,
So you're in
they're
the field
done.
at 3:15/3:30. What time are you watching film and doing the weightlifting?
Like usually the varsity will come to my room first, unless it's a lift day for them. If it's a lift day, they'll go to the weight room first. And our lifts, we have a real small weight room, so we do station type lifts during the year where we pick 6 exercises, and they do the first set is 21 seconds, the second set is 14, and the third set is 7. It's just on a stopwatch, so they have to increase their weight each time, and then their only rest time is when their partner's doing it. And they're partnered up, and we have kind of two lifts for the week, and there's so if we have 24 kids in the weight room, 12 of them are doing day 1, and 12 of them are doing day 2, and then it swaps the next time because we don't have a lot of rooms. So I would say about a half an hour in the classroom and about a half an hour in the weight room is what it takes.
So
Perk, how about
2:15.
you?
We, of course, Mondays with JV and stuff. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we've dedicated to a study hall after school. We get done school at 1:56. Then we go to a study hall, and then we'll head out. We'll start about 3:10. We'll start stretching and pre, and then by 3:30 we're into regular practice. Once we get pre done and stretching, and we'll be done by 5:15 to 5:30, depending on the day.
Perk, I missed it. I'm sorry if I missed it, but you have your guys lift on Monday? Do you have them lift another day?
Yeah, we're a Saturday, Monday lift.
Saturday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are study halls. So we have mandatory study hall, tutor sessions, and so on. Unfortunately, I have half the line needs that. So we have that squared away where I know what their grades are weekly, and they're assigned those days so that when the quarter ends, we don't have any issues because we've been dealing with it all year. So that's been a huge thing for us, is adding the study hall. Even though it's a pain in the ass, it's vital, and it really sets the tone for them as far as expectations, them as a student.
Awesome. Anybody got anything else?
So Coach Happ, you're hitting the field at 3:15/3:30. What time are you guys walking off the field?
If we're getting out there about 3:15, we probably actually start practice about 3:30. And I would say Tuesdays and Wednesdays we go a little bit later. It's probably 5:30. We probably go a full 2 hours, maybe even 2 hours and 10 or 15. As the season goes on, we try to cut it back a little bit and not go as long. There's not as much to cover necessarily. Thursdays for us is a shorter day, and Monday's kind of a combination of film, lift, and install. So we don't, and we condition. We don't do a lot of practicing per se on Monday.
And your school day ends there at what time? 2 o'clock?
2:02. Yeah.
So you guys are in motion by 2:15, doing something.
Yeah, we tell them they have to be at the locker room by 2:10, and then wherever they're going from the locker room, they're going directly to it from 2:10. So it's either the trainer in my room or the weight room, one or the other. We kind of divvy up the groups each day. It's posted, and they know where they're going.
Awesome.
Hey, Coach Goff.
Yes, sir.
Coach Goff. Yeah, I will just say that the end of our practice all depends if it's an offensive day or a defensive day.
I love you, brother. I love you.
Offensive days are usually a lot longer.
Turn the lights on, right, Coach?
Pass around to the field.
It's hard to coach. That's why. I knew that was coming. I was set up.
Mike doesn't coach any defense. He's getting bored. He's like, I want to shut this down.
Right. That's awesome.
Thanks, fellas. This is awesome.
Well, it was great, fellas. We got the UMaine staff coming on at 7, the offense guys. So make sure you guys get in on that. I got some good questions for them. It should be pretty good. And then I told some guys when we came on early, definitely make sure you clear your schedule for Friday night at 5:30. We've got the head coach, college head coach roundtable, and we're going to have some good ones in there. Some guys that you're definitely going to want to see, and at least one surprise in there. So it's going to be good, and then we'll have the social hour afterwards. So,
Coach Halley's buying all the beer for the social.
That social hour is open to everybody, right?
That social hour is open to everybody. College, high school, coaches, youth, middle school, whoever. I don't care. Bring your own beer.
You're the best, brother.
I love you, man.
All right, fellas. Peace out.